In today's world, the appetite for electrical power is great. So therefore, the transmission of power becomes a very, very important feature of today's society. Getting all this electricity from power stations to our homes and our industry is really, really, really important. There's a few things and features which we have to recognize. We need to consider why they've been made. First of all, power stations tend to produce large voltages in the first place. Okay. However, it's noted here that it's been transmitted around, so we normally have even higher voltage power lines linking power stations to major cities. Often these then step down, but we still have very, very high voltages, and what we tend to do is we drop the voltage down using step-down transformers to more suitable levels for heavy industry, light industry, or at the home. Okay. And in each situation, the voltage is lowered. Now, what I'm going to do in this session, I'm going to explain the reasons why we take these steps. Okay. So the first thing I'm looking at is the transmission of power. So we obviously need large amounts of electrical energy, and these are transmitted each second from power station to consumers, often over large distances. Now we have a choice here, okay? Since power is equal to current times voltage, we could either, option A, use a low voltage and a high current, okay? Or we could use a high voltage and a low current. These are the two options for transmission. So if we think about these options a little bit more closely, one becomes more apparently useful. Now, the National Grid normally picks method B, okay? And the reason for that is that current always produces heat in a resistor. Okay? So if the cables have a resistance and carry a current, the energy converted to heat each second is I squared, or current squared, multiplied by the resistance. So that means there's always going to be a amount of energy which is lost when we're transferring at very high currents because of energy being converted into heat. So that's one issue. So method B is used because the low current minimizes the power loss. Okay, so having a high voltage and a low current means the amount of energy lost due to heat is very, very small. Obviously, there's going to be some issues with very, very high voltages. I'm going to mention those in a moment or so, but that's the reason why we transmit energy or electricity around the country using very, very high voltages. So, next thing, if we're transmitting electricity around, we need to think about some of the health risks. Some of the health risks from EM fields. Now, electromagnetic fields could be, so obviously going to be used in the step-up and step-down transformers on the transmissions, but that's an oversimplification. In today's world, we've got to remember that there's electromagnetic fields everywhere. This is what we use to be able to pick up our Wi-Fi connection, to use our mobile phones, to receive radio communication, or pick up radio and TV in lots of cases. So there's been EM fields around for some time, okay. And therefore we've got to put the risks into the context. We use the example of a radio transmitter. A radio transmitter gives out EM fields, but in the radio wavelength, and this wavelength is so long, there's not a likelihood of it interacting with the human body, it generally being from a few meters to a few kilometers, and therefore the human body becomes irrelevant. It's not going to interact. However, results from animals, studies conducted so far suggest that electric fields also do not initiate or promote cancer. Okay. They could induce some electric current within the human body, but at this point in time studies say that there's not an increase in cancer. Electric field and magnetic fields are they classified as possibly carcinogenic to humans. Now this has been based on some studies linked to childhood leukemia. However, this is more of a statement which is not necessarily supported by hard science, but there's a possibility at this moment in time. And so therefore scientists make that statement. That's for electromagnetic fields. We've also got these high voltage power lines, and for these there's a few things we have to recommend. First of all, do not touch them. Okay, this is a very, very high voltage. It will cause a large amount of electricity to pass through you if you contact them, and that would be bad news for everyone. However, high voltage power lines as they stand, there's no causation which has been identified with cancer. However, some studies have found a higher rate of cancer in people living close to power lines, but there's a whole number of other factors which are still being researched there. So again, as we don't have a causation, it's something which we're concerned about and scientists are looking into, but the relationship hasn't been fully discovered or proven. It has to be stated here, and at the moment there's no obvious link. But science will tell with that. So there we go. There's some information about how power is transmitted around the country using the national grid and some of the issues which need to be taken on board.